There is a place on Earth where a few hours of disruption could send oil markets, and eventually the global economy, into shock. It isn't a giant oil field. It isn't a major city. It is a narrow stretch of water between Iran and Oman, the Strait of Hormuz. Every single day, roughly 20 million barrels of oil pass through this corridor. That's around 1/5 of the world's daily oil consumption. Now, think about that for a second. Millions of barrels of oil, hundreds of ships, some of the largest vessels ever built, carrying enormous amounts of energy, all moving through a passage only a few dozen kilometers wide at its narrowest point. On a map, it looks almost insignificant, but this tiny corridor has something far more valuable than size: leverage. Because what happens here doesn't stay here. A disruption could push up the price of crude oil. Higher oil prices can raise transportation costs. Higher transportation costs can feed into food, electricity, manufacturing, and eventually, the prices ordinary people pay every day. And here's the real paradox. Hormuz doesn't necessarily have to close completely to create a crisis. Ships slowing down could be enough. Insurance costs rising could be enough. Shipping companies deciding to avoid the area could be enough. Because behind every tanker moving through these waters is something much bigger than oil. It is a global economy built around the assumption that this narrow passage will remain open. So, in today's video, we're going to explore Hormuz, the tiny gateway carrying an enormous share of the world's energy. And welcome back to Hidden Worlds. Before Hormuz became a name on military maps and oil charts, it was simply a place shaped by water, wind, and rock. The strait lies between southern Iran and the Musandam Peninsula of Oman, connecting the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. At its narrowest point, the two shores are only about 33 kilometers apart. From above, the landscape looks almost unforgiving. Dry mountains rise from the coastline. The land is marked by heat, salt, and almost complete absence of rainfall. In some places, bare rock reaches directly toward the sea. Yet this harsh environment has never meant an empty one. For thousands of years, people have lived around these waters, learning to read currents, winds, tides, and seasons. Before tankers crossed Hormuz carrying millions of barrels of oil, wooden boats were already moving through these waters. And the people living here understood something outsiders often miss. In Hormuz, the sea is not simply a road. It is a source of food, a workplace, a border. And for generations of coastal communities, it has been part of everyday life. But beneath this quiet landscape lies a much more complicated world. Because where desert meets ocean, nature can be beautiful and extremely unforgiving. The first thing you notice around Hormuz is the contrast. The land is dry, the water is alive. Along the coast, fishing communities have depended on the sea for generations. Small boats move through waters now shared with enormous commercial tankers, while fishermen continue working much closer to shore. The environment itself is demanding. Temperatures can become extreme, rainfall is scarce, and fresh water is precious. Yet life has adapted. People have learned where to find fish when the winds change, and how the sea behaves throughout the year. The strait also sits within one of the world's most important marine environments. Its waters connect the Persian Gulf to the open Indian Ocean, creating a meeting point for different marine ecosystems. Fish, Seabirds, dolphins, turtles, and other marine life pass through a region increasingly crowded by human activity. And that creates a quiet tension. The same sea that supports local communities also carries enormous commercial traffic. A fishing boat may be searching for its daily catch, while, just beyond it, a tanker hundreds of meters long moves through the same water. Two completely different worlds, sharing the same narrow sea. Long before satellite navigation and modern radar, people here navigated by observation. They watched the sky, they watched the wind, they watched the color and movement of the water. For coastal communities, this knowledge was not written in manuals. It was passed from one generation to the next. A fisherman didn't need to understand global shipping markets to know when a storm was approaching. He needed to know the sea, and that knowledge still matters. The communities around Hormuz have lived alongside changing currents, seasonal winds, intense heat, and unpredictable conditions for generations. Their relationship with the environment is practical. The sea provides, the sea threatens, and the sea determines when people can work, travel, or return home. But modern Hormuz has introduced something their ancestors never had to deal with. Thousands of commercial vessels now move through waters that once belonged almost entirely to local fishermen. The scale has changed. The environment has not. And somewhere between those two realities is the human story of Hormuz. Not the story of governments, not the story of oil companies, but the story of people who wake up every morning and live beside one of the busiest waterways on Earth. Beyond the mainland, the landscape becomes even more unusual. Scattered across the entrance to the Persian Gulf are islands shaped by millions of years of geological forces. One of the most famous is Hormuz Island, a small island known for its extraordinary colors and mineral-rich landscape. Red, orange, yellow, and white layers appear across the hills and valleys, created by different geological formations. The island can look almost otherworldly, but its beauty hides a difficult environment. Fresh water is limited, the climate is hot, vegetation is sparse, and life depends heavily on what the surrounding sea can provide. For local residents, the island is not simply a geological curiosity, it is home. Fishing, tourism, small businesses, and traditional livelihoods all exist alongside a landscape increasingly discovered by visitors. And this is another paradox of Hormuz. The same isolation that helped preserve its character is also what makes life difficult. The island is beautiful because it is remote, but remoteness comes with a price: limited resources, limited infrastructure, and dependence on the surrounding sea. Here, nature doesn't simply create scenery, it determines how people live. Then the scale changes. A tanker appears on the horizon. It is difficult to understand its size until it passes close to shore. Hundreds of meters of steel move slowly through waters where small fishing boats have operated for generations. This is the modern Hormuz, ancient landscapes surrounded by some of the most advanced machinery on Earth. Radar systems track ships, navigation systems guide vessels, military aircraft patrol the skies, and beneath them, local communities continue their daily routines. For most people living far away, Hormuz is a geopolitical headline. For the people who live here, it is much more immediate. The ships are part of the horizon. The military presence is part of the landscape, and the sea remains the center of life. But this growing traffic comes with consequences. More ships mean greater pressure on marine ecosystems. More industrial activity means greater environmental risk. And any major accident in these waters could affect not only global trade, but the people whose livelihoods depend directly on the sea. That is the human cost hidden behind the statistics. When we talk about millions of barrels of oil moving through Hormuz, it is easy to imagine numbers. It is harder to imagine the fishermen living beneath that same horizon. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about Hormuz is that it has never belonged to just one story. It is a geological story, a maritime story, a human story, and now, a global economic story. For thousands of years, people came here because the sea connected them to the wider world. Today, the same water connects oil fields, cities, factories, and entire economies. Yet beneath all those enormous systems, the fundamental relationship remains surprisingly simple. People still depend on the sea. They still watch the weather. They still fish. They still navigate. They still live with the heat, the wind, and the unpredictable nature of the water. Hormuz reminds us that some of the most important places on Earth are not defined by their size. They are defined by what happens around them. A narrow strait, a chain of islands, a few coastal communities, and an ocean that has carried people across its waters for centuries. The tankers may be new, the technology may be new, the geopolitical stakes may be enormous, but the sea itself remains ancient. And perhaps that is the hidden world of Hormuz, a place where nature, people, and global power have been sharing the same narrow horizon for thousands of years.